Dear students, welcome to this lecture. Today, my topic of deliberation is Challenge for Women's Representation in Politics in South Asia. The objectives for this lecture are to understand the significance of women's representation in political institutions, to explore the overall scenario of women's representation in local and national politics in South Asia, to know the challenge faced by women in India vis-a-vis politics, to know the challenge faced by women in Pakistan vis-a-vis politics, to know the challenge faced by women in Bangladesh vis-a-vis politics, and finally, to understand mechanism that can be adopted by South Asian states to encourage women's participation in politics. Women in politics have made a significant strides in recent decades, but they continue to face various challenges and barriers. Historically, women have been underrepresented in political leadership roles around the world. This underrepresentation can be attributed to various factors including societal norms, cultural expectations, and discriminatory practices. Despite these challenges, progress has been made in increasing the number of women in politics. Women have been elected in high-level positions including presidents, prime ministers, and other important political roles. For example, Angela Merkel served as the Chancellor of Germany for many years, and Kamala Harris became the first female Vice President of the United States. Some countries have implemented gender quotas to increase the participation of women in politics. These quotas may require political parties to include a certain percentage of women on their candidate list or reserve a specific number of seats for women in legislative bodies. Women in politics often face various challenges, including sexism, gender bias, harassment, and unequal access to resources and opportunities. These barriers can discourage women from entering politics or make it difficult for them to succeed once they do it. The experiences of women in politics are not uniform and can vary significantly based on factors such as race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, and more. Intersectionality is an important concept to consider when discussing the challenge faced by women in politics. Women's rights activists and organizations play a crucial role in advancing the representation of women in politics. They work to raise awareness of gender-based discrimination and advocate for a policy change to promote equality and inclusivity. Female political leaders who break barriers and achieve success can serve as role models for future generations of women interested in politics. Their stories can inspire others to pursue political careers. Many argue that increasing the participation of women in politics is essential for achieving more diverse and equitable policies that address a wide range of societal issues. It's important to recognize that progress and challenge vary from one country to another, and there is ongoing work to address gender disparities in political representation. The presence and influence of women in politics can have significant impact on shaping policies and promoting gender equality in society. Women leaders have higher and more difficult problems than males since they must also contend with perceptions. With more women who take up leadership roles, previously unrecognized concerns and obstacles associated with such a position are now becoming apparent. Women's political engagement is hampered or facilitated by a variety of circumstances, including socioeconomic status, geographical, cultural, and political system form. Dear students, Let's have a look on the overall situation in South Asian context. Two contradictory images come to mind whenever one thinks of women in politics in South Asia. One image is that of powerful women leaders like Indira Gandhi, Benazir Bhutto, Hasina Wazir or Khalida Zia, swathed in beautiful traditional dresses, surrounded by party leaders who are mostly male, addressing huge public rallies, enthusiastically attended again mainly by men. Another image is that of female masses, poor, illiterate, often veiled, huddled in groups in separate women-only polling booths or ration lines or in labor lines seeking casual jobs. To an outsider, the two images are seen as indicative of contradictions of South Asian society. Some Western observers even argue that sharp class or caste differences make it easier for South Asian women for certain class and family background to achieve positions of political leadership. Whether or not it's easier for women in South Asia to attain highest position of political office is debatable. Nonetheless, the frequent emergence of powerful women leaders both in government and in opposition in all major South Asian countries gives rise to a number of questions. How and why have these women succeeded in assuming political leadership, particularly in societies still dominated by values of gender segregation and parda? Is family connection the crucial factor? How representative are these women? In South Asia, violence is one of the major challenges which women face in politics. The manifestation of violence takes place in different forms, including harassment, intimidation, physical harm or coercion, threats and financial pressures. These may become committed in the home or other private spaces or in public spaces. These acts may be directed at women in any other of their roles as electoral stakeholders, for example, as voters, media, political actors, state actors, community leaders, or electoral officials. It's relevant to note that although men in politics also face violence, the motives and the impact of violence against women in politics are different because apart from being apparent device of inequality, it's used to maintain subordinate position of women in society and shun them away from public decision-making spaces. Apart from this, it's the patriarchal mindset, gender stereotyping and different forms of cultural barriers affect the representation of women in politics. Women's status in electoral politics and governance is far below the desired representative levels, as it's viewed as the playground for men and with only few women getting an entry into the parliament. Under the canopy of patriarchy, women face a myriad of problems including, but not limited to, backlash from family members, political parties, ostracizing women candidates, character assassination, harassing women on the basis of their clothing choices, etc. Elections across South Asia are becoming increasingly expensive and furiously competitive. It not only impacts effective candidature but also implies that the ability to raise or spend high amounts of funds becomes the main criteria of success. The current climate of flawed electoral campaign mechanisms affect the women in politics disproportionately because it plays heavily on the existing socio-economic divide, creating financial barriers. Unlike Germany, this process is not supported or financed by the state to ensure competitive equality or level playing field and transparency, both essential to democracy. Access to campaign finance for women is difficult for women for multiple reasons. The first is that political parties are more reluctant to support female candidates than male candidates, as the latter has better chances of being elected in a patriarchal society. Secondly, female candidates who run as independents have to fund their own campaigns. Dear students, first let's have a look on the problems faced by women in India. Women standing in post-independence India recovered strength and began to advance. Women began to take part in many aspects of life, including politics, social, economics, culture, and religion. They are enrolling in educational institutions in order to obtain higher education. They have become professionals such as physicians, attorneys, scientists, teachers, educators, directors, executives, and so on, as a result of their realization of importance of education. India is ranked 18th in terms of political empowerment in the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report 2020. Indira Gandhi's 2 terms as Prime Minister from 1966 to 1977 and again from 1980 till her death in 1984 had a tremendous impact on India's status. Indira Gandhi's importance as a prominent female politician must not be overlooked. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment passed in 1992 requires that 1/3 of the village government head positions be designated for women. India has been attempting to keep track of number of female representatives at panchayat level, with figures indicating that women make up 30 to 50% of elected officials at the local scale. Nagaland, Sikkim and Manipur are among the Indian states with no women ministers. No state even a third of women ministers. Tamil Nadu has greatest proportion of female ministers at 13%, while 68% of the states have less than 10% female presence in state leadership positions. Women's vote share in India grew considerably during previous 50 years according to 2014 research, which was regarded as good trend. The main challenge which the women in India face in order to be part of politics are numbered as: Number 1. Political obstacle. Women's political representation and advancement are hampered by primary political obstacles. Absence of party support such as restricted financial assistance for female candidates, restricted access to political connections, and more stringent standards and credentials applied to women. Absence of availability to well-developed education system for women's leadership in general and for guiding young women towards political life. And the essence of electoral system which favors men. Women are prevented from participating in politics for a variety of reasons. There are many factors like present cultural value system, the private-public gap in terms of domain identity, and male predominance in political institutions, which are responsible for less participation of women in politics. They have been unable to amass help and services for cultivating their political constituency due to their low share in India's inner political party structure. Women do not receive appropriate financial backing from political parties to run for office. Number 2. Social obstacle. One of the most significant barriers to women being politically engaged is illiteracy. They are unaware of their basic and political rights due to lack of awareness. Parties prejudice not just in terms of seat allocation in polls but also inside their ranks. Poverty is also a significant barrier to women's political engagement. Any impoverished family's daughter kid is the primary victim and she faces several challenges. Women also shown to have greater rate of dropping out of schools than men. women's thinking is trained in a sense to accept that they are lesser class than males, since this has been viewpoint of many in society due to social and cultural standards. The caste system or social class structure is also a significant barrier. Because of their families' poor money, women from lower caste were unable to attend school. To provide for their family, many women were involved in low-paying jobs. The possibility of violence, according to Martha Nussbaum, is substantial impediment to women's capacity to participate in politics. Violence and prospect of violence undermines many women's ability to engage actively in various types of social and political connections, to speak publicly, to be acknowledged as respected people whose value is equal to others, as quoted by Martha Nussbaum. Because of the continued unequal allocation of family care obligations, women spend significantly more time than males caring for their home and children. Dear students, now let's have a look on the experiences of women in Pakistan. The status of women in Pakistan is heterogeneous, owing to uneven socio-economic development in the rural and urban region. Generally, women's situation vis-à-vis men is of systematic subordination. Men and women's activities are divided into outside and inside. Therefore, women's mobility is restricted and controlled. Men are given better education to compete for resources outside the home. This situation has led to dependency of women and becomes the basis of male power in social, economic and political spheres. Women do not have a role in the formulation of economic and social policies. Their exclusion from decision-making bodies does not provide them any opportunity to raise their concern or to promote their participation in politics. Governance system in Pakistan are male-dominated. It's imperative for women to claim their share of power to make decisions for political empowerment. The Constitution of Pakistan places no restrictions on women's participation in politics. Nevertheless, their presence in political parties as well as in the political structure at the local, provincial and national level remains insignificant due to cultural and structural barriers. The general elections of 2002 saw an unprecedented increase in the number of reserved seats for women in the Parliament of Pakistan. This lecture will analyze the political participation of women in Parliament and whether the numerical strength has contributed to women's empowerment. It will cover the issues of women's participation and major concerns associated with the representation of women in legislature. There is a need to assess the impact of increased representation of women in the Parliament and evaluate female legislatures' performance to derive lessons for the future. Some of the challenges experienced by the women in Pakistan vis-à-vis politics are as: Number 1. Cultural and societal norms. Traditional gender roles and cultural expectations in Pakistan often restrict women's involvement in politics. These norms can discourage women from pursuing political careers and can lead to social backlash and stigmatization if they do. Many women in Pakistan are expected to prioritize their roles as wives and mothers over political careers. Family and societal pressures can discourage them from seeking political positions or maintaining a work-life balance in such roles. Gender bias is prevalent in Pakistani politics, affecting not only women candidates but also women in leadership positions. They may face discrimination in terms of access to decision-making, policy influence, and party leadership roles. Women in politics in Pakistan often face threats, harassment, and even violence both online and offline. This can deter them from participating in public life and expressing their opinions. Number second, limited access to education. Unequal access to education in some parts of Pakistan can hinder women's political participation. Lack of education can limit their ability to engage in public discourse, run for office, or effectively advocate for their communities. Number third, no support from political parties. Some political parties in Pakistan may not be welcoming to women candidates or may not give them equal opportunities for nomination. This limits the chance for women to run for office and be elected. Women in politics may lack supportive networks and mentors, making it harder for them to navigate the political landscape and advance in their careers. Women candidates often struggle to secure financial resources needed to run successful political campaigns. This lack of funding can put them at the disadvantage compared to male counterparts. At last, legal and policy barriers. Despite some legal provisions that aim to promote women's participation in politics, there are still legal and policy barriers that need to be addressed. For instance, the effectiveness of reserved seats for women in parliament and local government bodies has been a topic of debate. Dear students, at last, let's have a look at the impediments for women in Bangladesh to participate in politics. Bangladesh, as you know, achieved independence on 16th December 1971 after 9 months long bloody struggle against the former West Pakistan. The Awami League led Bangladesh to independence, first ruled the country on the basis of 1970 elections, in which it won a landslide victory in East Pakistan. On 15th August 1975, President Mujibur Rahman and all his family members except his 2 daughters were brutally killed in a military coup. General Ziaur Rahman came to power in 1975 through a coup and counter-coup. He created a new political party, the Bangladesh National Party, and legitimized his rule through elections. During the Zia regime, Sheikh Hasina, daughter of Mujib, who was essentially a housewife, emerged as the leader of the Awami League when it was about to disintegrate. In order to ensure a minimum representation of women in parliament, the Constitution of Bangladesh provides for 45 reserved seats for women. According to Constitution, these seats are distributed among the political parties proportionately to their strengths in the parliament. With this historical background and constitutional support, the women in Bangladesh still face challenge as far as political representation is concerned. Some of the challenges experienced by women aspiring to be in politics are: number 1, corruption. Limitless spending in the political process enhances corrupt politicians' influence and prevents honest, dedicated and competent politicians from participating in politics. Corruption also inhibits women's active participation in politics. Illegal and unaccounted money are called black, and at present elections in Bangladesh are fully dependent on black money. Most candidates use cash to buy votes of the people of slum areas. Remembering these realities, the major political parties nominate those people who have money. In the patriarchal society of Bangladesh, women do not have any control over business where the opportunities for corruption exist. Number 2, fear of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is a serious factor which may prevent many women from taking part in politics. A patriarchal society always considers women as sexual objects. Rapes and other kinds of sexual harassment can be used as a means to control women. In Bangladesh, women are sexually harassed on the streets, in the marketplaces, in every institutions, even in the police stations. Politics involves 24-hour duty, much travel and strangers, and women may face sexual harassment by male leaders or their male political colleagues. Number third, no financial freedom and family support. Women in Bangladesh have little or no saving and they cannot spend money for political purposes. Due to patriarchal culture, husbands think that wives are their property and therefore wives' income are their property and husbands have every right to control their wives' income. In this process, husbands do not let their wives to save money. Women lose their autonomy and cannot take part in politics. Non-cooperation of husbands keeps women aloof from politics. In Bangladesh, men think that women should remain at home and do household activities. Dear students, the states in South Asia can take some of the positive steps to address the challenge experienced by women aspiring to be part of politics. Some of the ways can be: number one, mentoring in politics. Guidance and training programs help women prepare for political positions and improve their political abilities. Number two, positions in the community. Women who work at local level get skills they need to advance higher levels of government and careers in regional and national politics. As a result, measures aimed at encouraging women to join municipal politics can be especially beneficial in increasing women's political engagement. Number third, platforms for females. Many competencies development initiatives include strengthening women's platforms, relationships, and pools of future candidates. Number four, sustained training. Providing female candidates with continuous and systematic training delivers greater outcomes than providing stand-alone training during a single period of electoral cycle. The applicability and effectiveness of training is increased by including local female leaders or trainees who pass on their expertise to others. Number fifth, finance. To overcome the barriers of financial deprivation, women are being taught how to fundraise and funding networks are being established. Number six, leadership skills. Offering orientation for newly appointed women, leadership skill training, networking, opportunities, and offering chances to stimulate policy discourses are all examples of the ways to improve elected women's impact and leadership. Dear students, women's engagement in politics is critical for successful governance, and this lecture suggests that an enabling environment be created to increase women's political participation. It also suggests that the constitutional legal framework be improved to better accommodate the requirements of women in politics. Women should also be financially empowered by having access to education, job, and finance. It is also suggested that political party members get gender awareness training as well as leadership training for future female leaders. Political parties' agendas and operations should include gender-sensitive and egalitarian policies, and their execution should be evaluated. It's critical to pay attention to essential issues in order to increase women's empowerment chances. These include education and training programs, the prevention of numerous types of criminal and violent acts, the requirement of equal rights for them, the elimination of discriminatory treatment against them based on factors like race, caste, class, religious doctrine, ethnicity, gender, and socioeconomic class, and encouraging them to participate in politics. So, dear students, I hope you gain some knowledge on the challenge for women's representation in politics in South Asia and learn more to question more. Thank you.